Alright, right off the bat, I know that a gacha game immediately makes most people worry about predatory practices where unfair chances and microtransactions are rampant, but let me alleviate those concerns by saying that there won't be any kind of microtransactions in the game, so no need to worry. Truth be told, I've always enjoyed stuff like loot boxes and gacha games. The problem for me has always been when they're used as a way to get the player to spend even more of their hard-earned money. For those of you wondering how I even got to the point of turning a casual crane game into a gacha game, I'll get to that in due time. For now, let's kick off where the last devlog finished. Real quick before we do, if you find yourself enjoying the video, leave a like and subscribe. And if you have some spare time, feel free to check out my first game Battle Snakes on Steam. Since it's been more than a month since the first video, I don't blame anyone for forgetting where we left off. That being a working crane machine with the dodgy pickup mechanic that only did its job half the time, and a few goals I left myself. The most notable of the goals was a way to keep track of the toys that were collected, so I started with making a toy collection manager which could handle all collection related stuff. I manually wrote the names of the temporary toys into the script, intending to use the strings to detect which toy was collected. I knew from the start that when it came time to create the actual toys, it wouldn't be viable to manually write in the name of every toy, but since I only had a couple handfuls of toys right now, it worked alright. To test if the collected toys were being detected, I spawned in double the amount of toys and watched the numbers go up as the toys automatically fell into the collection zone. Another goal on the list was to make an in-game currency that the player would use to play the machines, so I added a money variable, as well as a machine cost to reduce the player's money buy when played. If you remember the last video at all, you know that one of the biggest problems in the game was the crane itself. To sum up the issue, there are two types of ropes and each has their own pros and cons. The one that you see now, the double hinge rope, moves nicely around the machine, but when it's dropped it's far too rigid and doesn't behave like rope. I suspect this rigidity is what's contributing to the bad pickups. The configurable rope on the other hand, moves way too loosely around the machine, but the looseness is ideal for when the claw drops. Any other joints I tried, like the spring joint or the character joint, were no better. So what I needed was a way to combine the best aspects of the first and second ropes. What I did was freeze the rigid bodies of the configurable joint rope when the crane's being controlled by the player, and unfreeze them when the player drops the claw. And even though the rope was freezing in the wrong spots, after some adjustments to the code, I had something that was pretty close to what I was envisioning. After numerous adjustments to the look of the claw, and numerous tests to make sure nothing broke, the claw was looking pretty good. This is when I noticed a pretty big flaw in the current design of the game, a flaw that would kickstart my decision to turn just a crane game into a gacha game. The game loop takes way too long. I timed it, and it takes 17 seconds from when the claw first starts moving to when it can be moved again. This amount of time would be nothing when playing a real world crane game. The difference is the more you play a real crane game, the more actual money you're wasting. In a game with over 400 collectible toys, where money is entirely virtual, 17 seconds to potentially collect a toy isn't acceptable. And that's not even including the time it would take for the collected toy to pop up, for the player to get a close-up view of what they got, so it was time to gamify it. I put the collection zone in the claw, so that instead of returning to the start and dropping off the toy would be collected as soon as the claw fully raised. Automatically, the collection time was cut in half, which was a good start. Next I needed to come up with a different way to show off the player's toys, rather than halting the game every time they collected something. I added a timer and got it counting down, the idea being that a player would have a certain amount of time to collect as many toys as they could before the game ended. Since the machine drop-off area wasn't needed anymore, I removed it and extended the machine out. Once the timer hit 0, the player could complete their last turn, after which the game would end. The capsules were changed back to opaque, as I wanted some focus to be placed on the actual unboxing of the toys now that they'd all be shown at the same time. I also experimented with a leaning camera using the right joystick, but I eventually got rid of it. To begin the machine selection mechanic, I made a machine manager script, and created a duplicate machine frame to switch to. I zoomed out the camera to get a better look at the whole machine, not that there's much to show at the moment, but I hope to eventually get them looking good. When a machine was selected, I made the camera zoom to the game view, and then had the toys spawn in. I created more machine frames, 10 in all since that's the amount of machines I'm aiming for, and got the change of machines working. All that was left was to enable the crane after a machine was selected, and the game was good to go. At this point I was preparing to implement the part of gacha games that really gets the chemicals in my monkey brain going, opening the loot. I added a different material for each possible rarity, the rarities being common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary. I sorted the scriptable objects into their temporary themes and rarities, and added them to the toy list. If you're wondering why it's 400, that's the number of unique toy types I've decided on, and that's not even including any variants of toys, so there'll be plenty of collectibles. The actual themes and toys have already been selected, The themes will be revealed later in the video, and the toys will be shown in the next devlog, so stay tuned. It was initially my plan to have themed machines, 2 machines per theme, that would give a greater chance of providing a toy of that particular theme, which is why you're seeing a lot more of one particular colour being spawned. I've changed it up a bit since. That'll also be expanded on in a later devlog. It was time for the loot display and opening, which I started by dropping the machine out of view and removing the crane and toy capsules. I tested the rarity rate of the toy spawn to make sure my code was right, and experimented with where the loot would be placed. Since I wanted to actually display the loot that was collected, I need to keep it in the game even when the other toys are removed, which I did by moving the collected toys behind the wall and giving them a different parent object. With the loot being displayed, I got working on the loot selection. I gave the loot an outline, which is really just a smushed sphere that changes colour depending on the rarity of the toy inside the capsule. Instead of having to manually collect toys, I put a collection zone in the middle of the machine, which made things a lot easier to test. I used rows and columns to calculate the toy that was selected, as well as which toy the selection should move to when I pressed an input. I made it possible to open toys individually, though every toy is the exact same at the moment, so it's not really all that exciting, and also added functionality to open all toys at the same time. I got working on the capsule designs, with the plan being to have a different look for each theme. It started with testing how well the textures wrapped around the default Unity sphere, which I came to learn was not very well at all, despite it looking perfectly fine on the material sphere. This was an easy fix though. All I had to do was make a sphere in Blender and bring it to Unity, replacing the Unity sphere in the toy capsules and testing them to make sure there were no problems. I spent a while doing some pixel art for one of the themes, and I think it turned out pretty decent, but when I tested it out in the actual game, I felt it was too complicated for the look I was going for, so unfortunately I had to scrap it. I also noticed something else I didn't like about the gameplay. Since the capsules were now opaque, aside from the different themes, there wasn't really anything to aim for in particular. Take this screenshot for example. Is there any point whatsoever in moving the crane all the way over here, when there's the same capsule right here? So to finish up, I made new capsule designs, which I specifically had 2 goals for. Keep them simple, and display the rarity, which would fix the lack of aiming design flaw. Here are the designs of the new capsules, and the first look at the themes: desert, sci-fi, entertainment, historical, and modern. And here's the look of them in-game. And just like that, we've reached the end of this devlog. I appreciate the support on the first one, and I can't wait to show you what's coming up. The next one will be all about the toys, so subscribe if you want to catch it when it comes out. Thanks for watching.